coffee.
All
That
right.
actually, can
And
she
just to
hear?
say, we're live, and it's Richard and Rose and Janet, and it's time to get the coffee. So yes, Richard, go
Okay,
get
I
your
will.
go
And
get your
that was like
coffee.
an excellent thing. I've been holding my tongue the last few weeks, Janet, to say like that backlight situation is. So that's a good thing that you
I
did.
know. The blinds in this office are a pain. And what's going to happen, though, is the overhead light is going to go off.
Okay.
Mm.
Well,
Automatically.
So this is sort of my choice: is do I want to be plunged into darkness at some point in the call, or do I want to have the backlighting?
isn't it motion? Can't you just be doing this to keep it on?
Not from
The
where my
jumping
desk
jack?
is.
Yeah, I've
not
had
from
that
where my
issue
desk
too.
is. If I move to the table in the middle of the room, then I will be in a position where the
Well,
motion sensor will
get up and I like to tell my students is like rather than falling asleep, just get up and like stand up and stretch a little bit. That's like way
That's
better,
what
and
the
that's what
TAs
you
are
should do.
for, to
Yes,
run
we'll
around the
see
room
me
and
doing
poke
that
them
at
to
some
wake
point
them
in
up.
this call.
Mm.
Because, yeah, I'm just too short to have the sensors work for me.
Oh, right. You see, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have known. This is the funny thing, actually, because you see people on Hangouts, like when I met Scott Clemmer, I didn't realize he had such a long nose, because I'd only ever seen him from the front. And then he turned sideways, and it's like, whoa. Anyway, sorry. He's a great guy, by the way. So, yes. Anyway, yeah, does anybody have agenda items? I see Janet has added an item about faking logins in Cucumber. Rose, did you have anything that you wanted to add to the agenda this week? No sound all of a sudden for Rose. Oh no.
And I can show you the survey. The survey is up if you'd like to see it.
Oh yes, lovely. I'll just ask. Can't hear us, Rose. Richard, now did you have?
Yeah,
items
I
to
took
together?
a vacation this week from adding to the agenda items, so
Okay.
I'm going to do it impromptu.
Okay. Do you want to? Is there anything on your mind that we can add before we?
I mean, the stuff on my mind is either not related to the course or not directly related. I have two sections, and one of my sections has two more class meetings, and one of them has one more, and I'm like,
yeah.
What do I do? But that's nothing really to talk about.
Well, we could be, and then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I mean, I just.
Yeah. Well, I'll add it to the end of the agenda. I mean, I'm not going to put Brian billing. And Rose can't hear us, and I think we can't hear her. Rose, you might want to reload the Hangout, possibly. I'm going to just add another note about, because I'm actually meeting Armando next week. Let's the link from there, and I actually started creating a list of things that I'm going to be asking him, because there are so many things that I might easily forget. I'll just so the things that I'm thinking of this. Hopefully, this is also covering well. Rose experiments with getting her sound back. I guess actually I should say to her, Rose, why not reload the Hangout, e.g. Control R. What was I going to do over here? I was going to so git book, and we were going to also talk to him about the grader architecture and the TDD BDD cycle, and then AV 102 on main edX. Actually, now he's mentioned a 169.3 project course, and then further greater development. Okay, well, I guess we are recording, and Rose may be frozen in time somewhere in the vortex. I can at least reassure myself that she will be able to watch the video of this, even if she can't necessarily participate. I guess in case that's completely stuck, what I will do is I'll just ping her in the BetaSaaSers channel and say the same thing there. There, and then we will get started. So yeah, or just to go back over the outstanding action items. Yeah, so I still feel a deep pain in my heart about the lack of consistency on the part of the AutoGraders and the assignments. As I said before, I'm hoping to improve that over the next run of the MOOC, which starts very soon. So Rose put up a a homework for walkthrough into the instructor community resources things. I don't know if that was there in time for you to reference it.
Well, I would say sort of yes, in that I took a break this week, a pause, because
Yeah.
I had some guest lecturer come in who was actually very good, and I'll be giving them another shot and help with homework for. So I do plan to
Okay.
get to it and look in it, and I am appreciative.
Oh well, that's my concern was that that it had come too late to be of value. So if it's
Right, and it hasn't. I would say. I mean, not. There's a second chance. I always like to give second chance.
Great, great. And so then, and there's the opportunity for all of us to collaborate on that homework for walkthrough. What I would love to do is turn this into, from PDF into a markdown thing, so that we can just edit that directly. I guess I might put in a specific.
Well, is it PDF?
I mean, it's PDF. I think Rose has also got it in. She's got it in what's it called? Word format in there. So I can probably just sort of take the Word format and yeah, it's a little bit of work.
Is there anything that Okay, I mean, I'm just asking obvious questions, but I would think that there would be a way to like sort of copy and paste from Word to either PDF or an HTML that would go to like at least a first cut at the markdown.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, in principle, it should be. Well, I can't remember. I guess I've got to download it. If I open it locally on my system, I could just copy and paste that out of the thing. We'll probably lose the images, but and that's more the slightly tricky bit there. But it's
okay.
I mean,
here's the thing that anyone who's sort of doing on this, there should be like a little coordination so that two people aren't like duplicating effort like at the same time. So I don't know if it's just us doing it. I don't know if we could just do it like a text hangout just to say, hey, I'm working on it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that I'm encouraging the students for the AV102 course is to basically coordinate through the channel. What I've just been recording the lectures. So if they're helping students, then the idea is for them to check in here. So I mean, we've got the BetaSaaSers channel. So if anybody starts working on that.
Okay, so use that. Yeah, I haven't been as active using that lately. I know you guys have.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'd recommend, actually, if you guys, I get the desktop client of Slack installed. That's the way to remove email from your life, basically. If you can get everybody else in your social and work circles to use it all the time. But,
okay.
I guess I'm just noticing here that I don't immediately have that repo cloned onto my system, which I will now do. Well, we'll leave that running in the background. So, so then we've got also, I mean, everybody, we must try and fix the loss of critical thinking in the education system. I hope you're all working on that. That's we'll be checking in again each week on that. So Janet, looks like, done for your starting on a list of questions for the survey. Excellent. And so myself, redoing the homework help videos, demo the debug thing. Yes, I've revised. I'm basically going back through and revising all the videos. So this should ultimately come, and I guess really the addendum there is make sure instructors or ping instructors when that particular video is done. Ping instructors when that particular video is done. I'll just mention actually as well that there is though quite a good. If we look at the ByBug repo. I believe they have in the wiki quite a good. Is it in the wiki? Or it wasn't in the wiki. It was in the documentation. I thought they had quite a nice. We go. Getting started. ByBug's Markdown guide. Yes. So they've got. There we go. Here. So this is actually quite a nice walkthrough. I think of a relatively simple debugging. Not with Rails, but with some simple things. I think this is quite a nice guide to point one's students to. If they're saying, I have no idea how to use these debuggers.
And you may have even that. Remember how I talked about my problem with the extra class? You may have.
Yes.
You're giving ideas because that's the kind of thing I could have people do, but it's not like a. Yeah.
It's not necessarily so huge.
I like that.
This is a resource for how to use debuggers. Yes.
Okay. And are you going to wind up ending up copying that link? Yeah.
I am going to put that as I often do into here and. But since you've expressed an interest in that, I can follow that up by actually, just out of interest, who here does have the desktop version of Slack installed? It's just me?
No, I also have that
And
expectation.
Puneet, there you go. Puneet going up in my estimation daily, basically. Puneet just keeps doing things each day, and I'm like, yes, Puneet, it's, yes. So, but Janet or Rose, do you have the? And I'm hoping Rose's sound might be working now.
I think it's working again.
Yay! We can hear Rose. Rose is back.
Have no idea what it just suddenly it cut out and nothing I did would get it back. I just had a reboot.
Yeah. Sorry, so that's unfortunate. The recording is there. We were just sort of warming up chat now. Do you have the Slack desktop installed?
No, I don't.
No.
I just use it online.
Yeah, I think that I would strongly encourage everyone to. Well, I'm going to put an action item there for all. Install Slack desktop. It's a very good client, and I think it's a big improvement over the web interface. Wouldn't you say, Puneet?
Absolutely. Actually, I don't remember why I stopped using the online version. Maybe, yeah, one of the reason was I think most of the corporate firewalls, they block Slack channel. Okay, so anyway, you won't be able to use it when you are working within a firewall. But I think the need to log in each time for different channels, because I'm subscribed to multiple channels right now. So
yes.
yeah, just enter them for once, and
yeah,
just have to open this app and.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this is the setup I've got here. So I've got my different channels, and so I just found actually that OpenEdX have got their own Slack instance, and we can talk to other people about edX and stuff in here. And so I've got all the different Slack instances available, so I can move from Agile Ventures to OpenEdX and back again, and the notifications are much cleaner. And what I often find is that if I'm only using Slack in the web interface, then I will lose where the Slack window is, and it's kind of like it's a bit like only when I look at it. Whereas I'm able to find Slack very quickly and manage it much more. Anyway, if you're interested, link to that page, which has they have nice systems, even for Linux, Mac, Windows. Okay. And I'm not paid anything by Slack, by the way. I just like their system. So
we assumed you were getting a kickback.
Well, I tried hard to get that, but it didn't work out. But anyway. Well, I think we've just gone through the other action items. Rose, did you have any other items to add to the agenda?
Not to add, but I will be posting some comments about the new chapter materials. I've been going through with some of the students, and we've been like prayer proofing. How about that?
Fantastic.
Prayer proofing, prayer walkthrough, and so we're going to start posting some stuff.
Great, excellent.
What's the preferred sort of feedback vehicle for even minor things?
Smoke signals. I think probably I can see them across the pond.
Across the big pond.
We have this errata system that I kind of we do have the errata.
It's kind of horrible. It's
I know.
Kind of horrible.
I mean, yeah, it is horrible. I've sort of stopped looking at it because I just can't bear it. So, I think
maybe the smoke signals wasn't facetious.
Yeah, well, I've been finding something in between smoke signals and this errata system. I would say the way that it's been, some people have said something recently, is they basically make comments in the PDF and send me the PDF, and I think that's probably the way to go. Really, so certainly Armando, I think, finds it reasonably practical to absorb comments in the PDF. I want to move us all over to Gitbook so we can take individual issues. But we'll see.
And you'll be that will happen after you meet with Armando. And successfully down.
We're gonna cross our fingers.
Well, that's what we're gonna discuss that. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of things in play. Anyway, but yes, certainly I think PDF with comments is probably sensibly the way to go. Particularly if you've gone through, because you kind of want to follow, the thread of it.
Yeah,
I would say. Okay.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So, and then you can have coherent comments through through that
Right.
PDF. And it's also the format that you experienced it in.
Okay,
so
but we'll be working individually. In other words, we don't have we're not going to go to like a shared PDF kind of like Google
I don't have
Docs
any
kind
plan.
of
If you want to
comments.
set that up, Richard, then
Yeah, yeah. It's probably we'll wait till your meeting and see how that.
yeah, see how that goes.
I mean, if it's long term, it might be worthwhile, but short term, we'll wait.
Yep. So so for the MOOC is a month away. The AV 102 course is live. I have what have I been doing? I have there's the course. So this is available on Edge edX. If you do have is that the live course? That is the live course. If you are interested in sort of training up TAs for your upcoming courses and so on, this is a free thing that the Mentiv Armando is distributing this to the Mentiv mentors. Yeah, I'm re-recording, trying to bring it all up to date. Doing things with transcript. It's embarrassing to watch all of my old videos and how often I say and and I've actually by making a transcript, I've cut a minute off these 5-minute videos. I think there's a minute of me saying and repeating myself, and yeah. So I'm just saving everybody's time here.
I wouldn't worry so much.
So book update. As far as I can tell, it hasn't made it to Amazon yet. I don't know if anybody else.
Not that I know of.
Yeah. Go on. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be my big argument to Armando about why we need to move to Gitbooks, where the update would be immediate. Is this ridiculous process whereby it takes however long it takes, the unknown amount of time. I mean, as far as I know, Armando pushed that 2 weeks ago, and it's still not showing up here.
Can I ask the Armando makes money off of the Amazon thing, right?
Well, I mean, not really, but there is some at this price. Basically, there is a small amount of profit, and that goes towards paying for the indexing, the editing, and the translation into other versions.
Okay, and yes. Would that go away with Gitbook?
No, it wouldn't. That's the thing. The interesting thing about Gitbook is that you can have free Gitbooks, but you can also have paid Gitbooks. So
there's I don't know.
Yeah, so you can kind of pay for. Well, maybe I'm completely wrong. I thought that they have maybe I have misinterpreted this. This is so it's free for unlimited public. There we go. Right. So you can create private books, and I believe if you do this payment thing, you can create a certain amount of private books, and then you can charge for the private books. I thought, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, that's interesting to do one's homework before that meeting, because I'm wondering if that could be an issue with Armando, and then it's an issue with our students too, with how they acquire it. If to do a $7, I mean, not that it's necessary, but just from what you said, to do a $7 a month subscription.
No, I think this would be the price that we would pay. This would be the students
to have it hosted, right?
This is so. For example, as an organization, SaaSbook, we would pay $35 a month, or possibly get it for free because we've got free Gitbooky What's It. Or anyway, but so we would pay this thing, and then the students would do a one-off payment to get access to the private book.
Right, which is not identified there as how that works.
No, it's not. And now that I
got it, okay, right, which is
it's So they've got their plans. I mean, I guess there's not a mechanism for I guess if this is treating it like private repositories. And
there are discounted plans to students and teachers and all that. Yeah, there's just some homework to be done.
Yeah, there definitely is. Yeah. Well, and I'll write this. So I'll put that in as a.
That's interesting.
So this would be Sam, check that we could charge students for access to private Gitbook repos. Okay. Yes. So that's going to be good point. So I'm going to be trying to speak to Armando about that. Now I'm not so optimistic about that being an option at all. I'm going to talk to him about the Grado architecture and the future of that. There's one thing that's kind of a pet issue for me, is that we have this concept of the TDD BDD cycle throughout the course or in the course, and I think it's kind of this is like, is it the dodo or this is the hippogriff or what have you, that there isn't really a TDD BDD cycle. Like the TDD BDD cycle seems like it's like, okay, BDD is doing the cucumber and TDD is doing the RSpec. However, RSpec, according to its creators, is a BDD tool. It's the behavior-driven design is the fact that you're describing whether it's at the unit level or at the acceptance level, it's that you're describing the behavior of the system rather than relying upon the internals of the system. And so it seems to me if there's a cycle here, it's the acceptance test unit test cycle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so part of what I put into the AV102 course is trying to explain what I think is the tangle there. It doesn't help that the homework 4 is called the BDD TDD cycle, and then also doesn't enforce that style of development, which is actually this style of development within it. So
right. I mean, there's a sort of that's one big issue. I don't know if you remember, like the first year, my TA Keith Lane, he had this whole issue is like, hey, like the way things are sort of described is not really the right thing, or it's not well done, and I'm not even in great shape to articulate that, but I did appreciate what he was saying and I did understand. But the other thing is that how well do the homeworks really reinforce the concepts? And I've always had, as I've articulated through the years, is that the homeworks sort of get people focused into the weeds and then they lose the forest concepts. And I'd love, it makes it easy for me as a teacher because I can just say, hey, do this assignment and then just focus on helping them with that. But I think the students don't come out of the course with a better appreciation as a result of doing the assignments.
Yes, I would like to feel the students were coming out with a high-level appreciation of acceptance test unit tests rather than necessarily like learning a lot about gem files. Not that gem files aren't valuable.
Aren't important. Yeah.
But,
hey,
go on, Rose.
I took a different approach in that I described the BDD TDD cycle as being acceptance for the BDD and unit tests for the TDD. But what I told my students, and it's a matter of focus, all right? I just said, well, what we're going to do in class, and you're going to get familiar with 2 different types of testing tools.
Yeah.
And we're going to use Cucumber for our acceptance tests. And we're going to use RSpec for our unit tests. And you can use RSpec, for both. You can do, there's lots of flexibility with these 2 testing frameworks, but we're going to focus on one for one purpose and one for the other. And then at least you kind of, it's in scope as far as what you need to learn for each of those for this class. But realize that there's nothing that says you can't. I mean, they're not labeled like RSpec is not a unit testing framework. It's a testing framework.
Exactly. Yes, and well, I think you're absolutely right there, Rose. That's exactly the way it is, and I think it's absolutely And I think it is often the case that Cucumber, because it's slightly high level, is seen as a better tool for acceptance testing, although it can in principle be used for unit testing.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the danger is what I worry about is students going into an interview after the course and being asked what BT and saying, well, that's using Cucumber, and
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, and I would warn students. I literally warn students about this sort of thing.
Right.
If you're asked this in an interview, you need to be secure about what these things really mean.
Right. Excellent. So I mean, I'm hoping to try and address some of these things. The interesting thing at another level is, it's easy to have, to get into these sort of religious wars where, one prefers, Ruby versus Python, or, I mean, I've kind of gone through this process of, the different levels of testing. We've got the acceptance testing. We've also got, I mean, if we're talking about levels of testing, we've got these ideas of there's, acceptance testing,
right,
and we've also got the unit testing, and then we've got these different things. So we can be testing the models. We can be testing the controllers. We can be testing the views. We can be testing services, and then we've also got
routes.
And then you can do the separate. Well, you can so you could be testing the routes. You can even be testing the rake tasks. You can be testing the what are the migrations. There's you know, almost anything that you write within the Rails framework can be tested.
Correct.
And
then there's non-functional testing like performance and scalability.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Testing, and then we've got say like there are non-functional testing.
Non-functional performance, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got the performance and the scalability. There is, I don't know that we present it in the course, but there's this concept of the testing pyramid that does tie together some of these things. If we look for the images there, I think often, you know, this is the one that I end up showing to students. Is that? No, just give me the. Oh, go on. I just wanted the individual image, not the view image.
Yeah.
There we go.
Right.
Which, you know, links up the unit tests, and then, you know, GUI tests here as acceptance tests, and then they've got the and there's various different versions of this. But so, for example, when we started a lot of the Agile Ventures projects a couple of years ago, well, Armando in the course has said, like, oh, we'll do acceptance testing and models and controller testing, and probably not bother with views. And I was interested to sort of see for myself, and so we went for a kind of like the, you know, belt and suspenders approach, and used views and controllers and models and the acceptance testing. And I think I'm definitely agreeing with Armando that we probably don't need the view tests. And actually, and this comes from my work at Makers Academy, we maybe don't need the controller tests either. And then this ongoing thing of you can be doing your when you have things like your services and your routes and controllers, you can be doing these as kind of, if you stub them, that leads it to being a unit test. But if you don't stub them, it actually ends up being kind of an integration test.
Well, yeah.
And I think I've been going backwards and forwards on, you know, all the different variations of these things and whether it's appropriate to have them or not. And as I kind of come full circle, I think, sorry for this long diatribe here, but come back to the religious thing, is I think at some points I've been very vigorous about saying, oh, you need this or you need that, but maybe it's been kind of too much. And what I wonder, but I particularly want to talk about Armando about this, is, you know, is this an important distinction? Can we afford to be fuzzy here? Is it too difficult to really change the course retrospectively to deal with this language issue, or is this actually a really important language issue that we need to resolve? And that's kind of the thing that I want to bring up with him. But maybe that's a sideshow to this point that Richard is making, is the danger that certain homeworks, whatever you call them, they're not being reinforced.
Right. The thing is, I think what's lacking is that they don't focus on the idea that, or maybe what I should say is that the book doesn't explain that it is focusing on these particular categories of testing, and it is not emphasizing the fact that, oh, there's a whole slew of other things in there, but we are focusing on this, and explain why they're focusing on that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yes. Does that mirror Richard and Janet? Would you concur with that?
Yeah.
Say that again. Say that again. I was thinking about my own thing for a second. So just repeat it in a sentence.
I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad that the course teaches these things, but it doesn't explain that this is the course focus, as opposed to the fact that these things just fit into a much wider context. I mean, students start thinking about it as religion.
Well, the thing is, I mean, we you know, even if the course would say that, I mean, we as instructors, you know, will say that, you know, kind of thing over and over and over again. The issue is, I think it's more like, you know, do what I, you know, sort of copy what I do as opposed to what I say. And I don't think that, I think that however much we say it, if what we ask them to do and what we ask them, and we say this is what we're grading you on, that's what they're really going to be focused on.
To a certain to a certain extent, but I mean, you can't in one semester do everything. You do have to focus on some things.
Mm.
And
Right, but
you know,
clearly,
there
I mean,
has to be a priority.
Right.
I don't
But
think
you
there's
need
any
to
doubt that
explain
we
it.
want to focus on the higher. I mean, the priority is
Yeah.
the higher level stuff. The weeds and the details will go away in a few years, and they're not going to remember that.
Right, but
Yeah.
I guess what we're saying, I mean, the key thing to bring this back is that the bottom line is that the students are going to, whatever we say, the students are probably going to end up being very strongly distracted, if not entirely focused on what we're grading them on. And so
Exactly.
if the homework doesn't kind of focus on that thing, then, you know, it's an uphill battle for us to kind of try and get them to focus on anything else.
Sure.
Right. I mean, I don't
I
want
want to add one
someone
other thing.
to come away from the course with the ideas like, okay, you know, what I learned from this course is like, if I do a rake and it doesn't work, add bundle exec at the beginning of it.
Right.
Right. That's
Right,
like,
right.
you know, but it's not interesting.
Yeah. One thing that I would like to add is that
Go on, Ruth.
students throughout the semester
Mm-hmm.
have said that with all these stupid little weedy things they've had to deal with, they have started to understand that coding in the real world is not the same as academia,
Mm-hmm.
and that is one of the major takeaways.
Right.
Because up until this course, most of the stuff that they've done, I mean, you know, little toy exercises, little programs where everyone knows the, you know, knows the solution ahead of time, and nothing where you're working with an environment that is constantly changing,
Right.
languages that are constantly changing, etc.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I
do
agree.
believe, I don't want to make that the focus of the course, but I do
Sure.
believe that they have to have a little bit of that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's great, and that's a rationalization that I throw in anytime we run into a problem. I say, you know, oh, real world. So that's great. The only thing it's not even, but it's not a. In some ways, it's also flawed because given as this course has been out year after year after year, and hundreds and thousands of people have taken it and posted, you know, their questions and so forth. What happens so much is the students will ask a question that seems like it's a generic question, but basically it comes back like right to the how to do this in Rotten Potatoes. So,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They're losing a little bit of that real experience there because we're not like changing up the problems as much as would be nice.
Yes. It seems like, I mean, I like, it's nice to have some of that real world stuff in there, but if it's so much that it's distracting from you know, key concepts we want to get across, then that's clearly not a good thing.
I would have no problem with it if we could do both. But I think, you know, I'm more worried about the forest and the software engineering concepts in my class.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Yes. Well, good chat there. I just bring in Janet. Maybe does that is it all making? Would you agree with most of what we're saying, or what's?
Yeah, I mean, I talked pretty early on the class about sort of all different types of testing.
Yeah.
Now, I do it pretty early in the class, and that may be something I may want to reinforce a little bit later on. So, and then my students do you know, they're right now they're in the middle of doing their real client project. So, you know, they're definitely getting the real world stuff right now, which of course this is part of the big challenge now is, you know, their abilities at Cucumber and RSpec are outstripping mine, and I can't answer their questions.
Right.
Well, that's interesting. I would think that a semester kind of client project might not. I mean, it might help with like sort of the behavior stuff, but the real value and whether you've done the like sort of the unit testing well is in longer term maintenance kind of mode, which these guys are not really. I wouldn't expect they're experiencing as well.
Well, I had an interesting discussion. You know, using the RSpec tests. I'm finding it in some ways very strange because they're really white box tests that are so tied to the imitation. It strikes me that these things are very brittle. You know, because they're really testing, you know, did you call this model with this command? And it's useful if you want to think about them as something you write while you're developing, but you make any change to the code, they're going to break. So now you have code and tests that have to be maintained simultaneously, and I'm having a harder and harder time really justifying this approach to the students, as opposed to unit tests that are black box and that step back a little bit, where you're saying, if I call this method with these inputs, I'll get these outputs.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't have an answer to this.
Right. And the issue, I mean, I'm not very knowledgeable, but the issue might be that maybe that's an indication that they're writing bad tests. But that's really tricky to evaluate.
But those are the kinds of tests you're told to write for the homework.
Yeah.
When you're doing the TDD, what's my code have to do? Well, it has to do this call to the model, that call to the model.
And I would connect that to the way in which, for example, Armando demonstrates writing controller tests, and he includes these unit tests of controllers where the controller code is kind of being stubbed, and so you've got a setup where if we imagine we've got some code and we've got, this is our class, let's say this is my user controller, and it's going to be representing lots of users. And then we've got the situation where we're doing, create, and we've got something like where we are doing we're going to do user equals user.new, and we're passing in, the params for the let's say just trivially like this. And then there's a process where if we're now testing this code, and then we kind of do it's going to be like a post to with some sort of blah blah params or what have you. Imagine this is now in RSpec, and so we've now got, this is like describe user controller and other bits and pieces, and then it's got these statements, and this is like it creates a user, and we're using that sort of post operation. I forget the exact syntax for it, but what we're doing is we're going to have expect what's it gone, like user to receive new with whatever the params happen to be. And as I think this is what you're referring to here, Janet, as a white box test, we're kind of we're writing a test here of the things that happen in the controller method, but we're stubbing out the relationships with the other parts of the system, and that does strike me as extremely brittle. It seems to me, I have a bit of a problem with this kind of, particularly in the context of these things. If we'd split this out into a service as a different sort of thing, and then that could be sort of tested independently. I mean, there are different ways to write it, but it's it's dangerous to be stubbing. There is a whole concept of which is not introduced in the course, which I've been working with, which is don't mock what you don't own, which is like how to write good tests. Is that a good one? Something over there. Eighth Light have a block here. That's not yours. So I think this is there are. I would say, and perhaps I'm being uncharitable, I would say that Armando is fantastically knowledgeable, but I think that there are some aspects of more modern testing approaches that didn't make it into the course in the state that the course was when it was cutting edge 4 or 5 years ago. So there's this idea that if you really want to write a test of this thing, then you need to kind of create a service and extract that, and it becomes an entity in like a domain model, and but you shouldn't be stubbing aspects of the Rails framework, which can then change and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'll put this this link in here. Sorry, I'll just.
But now, isn't part of that the difference between a unit test and a full stack test?
Well, yes and no. Because I think that if we were to do an extraction here, where we were to pull that out into a service, like what we would be doing is this is kind of like this unit test here. If we were to say that the create operation, say we were actually to create a service object, which was like user create like this, and then we were going to be testing that, and this user creates object there, you know, it would have an initialize method, and we would set that up by saying that it's going to have a user model, which by default happens to be the user, the Rails thing, but we could now write a test for this that was, if we were just describing the user create entity by itself, like so, we could now be, and we said it's, you know, creates a user, and then do an and in there. It's a bit bigger for you, and so in here, we'd use things like the more recent, the named subject. So we'd say like subject user like this, and then we'd have this would be, is this right? No, sorry. With the subject, this would be user create like that, and then we'd have user create and like that, and then we would create. So we could say user create like so, and we would have we're doing new there, and we would pass in. In particular, what we would be creating as well as a subject is we would be creating a stubbed entity. Maybe, forgive me if I'm just going off on one here, and this can just be double user. And but the point about this setup here is that we end up we're not, and anything that we then talk about the interactions with this, you know, the collaborating objects, we've actually got control of it. I don't know if that makes sense. I need to do diagrams and do a whole video on this or something. And so
that would be nice, actually.
The idea here is that, like, if you've then got this sort of domain entity of your own that you've created, and you can sort of specify how it behaves, then that's very different from a system where you're kind of, you know, you're relying on all the Rails architecture to support it. And really, the main thing that comes out of my experience at Makers Academy is, you know, you only want to be applying the unit tests down to sort of domain entities that actually make sense in your domain, that have domain relationships, not to be using it to sort of test bits of the Rails architecture are flowing in a particular way.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you there. Yeah, I mean, the criteria that I have for my students is if it's the unit is doing Rails default behavior, I don't want to see unit tests for it. But if the unit is doing something based on maybe some model code you wrote or something like that, I want to see a unit test.
Yes, yes. So so it's, I don't know if that helps at all, Janet.
Yeah, you know, then you can't use, you know, the trick with not doing the Rails is that, you know, if you want to use coverage as the metric for how good their testing is, then it's harder.
Well, indeed, and I think that then, I mean, it comes. I think the big problem that we have, if we come back to, and I'm trying to find it now. Where's it gone?
Doesn't the coverage look at end-to-end testing as well? In other words, isn't that counted?
It can do, but I don't think that's being looked at when in the system in the grader. So the big thing that it comes back to is that you know, we've got a legacy issue here of the structure of the homeworks and the way in which the graders work. And so the interesting thing is, if you know, in discussion with Armando, I could get us to the point where we kind of agreed some of the things that we're talking about here about, you know, what's appropriate for acceptance tests and what's appropriate for unit tests, and about the acceptance test unit test cycle, and then we could agree on the learning objectives for the homework, and then we could update the homework and the grader to accurately reflect those learning objectives. That would be, I think, a huge step forward. It's just that it's a big legacy job. I mean, I think particularly if we look at the BDD TDD cycle thing here, then what concerns me in particular about this structure, now that I've been working with a lot of other education systems, is we haven't really got any specification, high-level specification of the learning objectives here.
Good point.
You know, it's like, what are we supposed to learn as a result of having done this assignment? And it says, you know, look, you will use a combination of behavior-driven design, test-driven design. Okay, I'm going to use these things, but what am I learning? And we've had some related, you know, lectures up front, and I think we've got even in the textbook, I mean, the section of the textbook, I remember that they did lots of great work trying to establish, you know, all of these ACM learning objectives. I've actually got the textbook in there now. Yeah, I'm kind of, I think there's definitely stuff missing here. The interesting question is can we, you know, through a series of, you know, small steps rather than rewriting the entire everything, kind of address some of these issues. It's I guess, where do they even get into the test-driven development there? I guess the ACM learning objectives are the end of each chapter, are they? Have people used those ACM objectives in their, you know, course syllabuses at all? Has that been important for you guys?
It's been important to look them over and make sure that things are covered. Yeah.
I mean, I think they do have, you know, like the section there on different kinds of testing. I can't immediately find that. Anyway, I should. We're maybe getting somewhat far afield. Excellent point there from Janet about this, the white box testing, and I'll try and bring all these things up with Armando next week. I mean, that was my key objective really with this thing here was, you know, other things that you'd like me to mention to Armando, really.
Yeah, I mean, this is nothing new, but it's a high level thing. Is like where does this project of creating a book and a software engineering course fit in Armando's sort of life and career? Because he seemed like allegedly very accessible and interested in feedback early on, and he doesn't, you know, he doesn't seem to be as focused on like these are perfect things that you know, wouldn't be great if he were actively sort of working at least part-time and involved in these kinds of discussions, and I'm not quite sure where he's going, because this mirrors to me like why I got out of academia, because I was interested in pursuing a project, my professor was very interested, but when it came down to like, okay, real world and sort of maintenance and support and like creating and like the hard work, he was like, my professor was like, okay, he was moving on to the next interesting topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a big thing that's taking up a lot of Armando's time is this Mentiv thing, right? You're familiar with this Mentiv thing?
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, which is So this is a startup that he's done in collaboration with people from the UC Berkeley Business School, and so it basically, and actually Puneet is a Mentiv mentor, and so it's not just the edX 169 course, that's just one of the main courses, but so it offers, you know, students can pay for. Should we say is Puneet in there?
No, actually, I'm not.
I'm not doing the current run, but quite a few people that we know from Agile Ventures in there. But so students can pay and then do hangouts weekly with these mentors as they go through the course. So building all of this framework and so on has been, you know, he's like the chief educational officer for this for this company.
Which is cool, but then the question is where, you know, where does this fall in and because we're casting our lot with this.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think it's interesting. I mean, maybe in some ways it's a little bit my fault, because if I hadn't been so involved in like, you know, like doing this, taking on leadership in the community, maybe Armando would have been and Dave would, because like as you remember, I'm sure, Richard, like the original ones, they were running a teleconference from Berkeley, which was audio only, and they were doing it themselves every 2 weeks, and I think that they were, you know, actively asking instructors at that point, what are these issues and this, that, and the other. Since I've got very involved in it, I think they've said, right, well, Sam can sort of manage that, and we'll get on doing our own things. I definitely get the sense of them that I think they would like the book and the course and everything to be completely updated with the latest stuff. But I think that's, you know, getting a company off the ground.
And part of that has to do with the way things have been structured, both in the book and the AutoGraders. And in fact, even though we're talking about all these principles, you know, building things for maintainability, it seems like none of that has gone into.
I think that's. I mean, the interesting thing is that I would say, particularly as regard the AutoGraders, is that what's happened is that we've had a succession of students who have, in principle, taken Armando's class, and one would hope have. You know, it kind of absorbed all of these software engineering principles. But I think even having taken the class, and even with the best of intentions, even having absorbed the principles and the best of intentions, it's still really hard to do well in a serious project. And I think there are also higher level problems in the grader architecture due to you know, constraints like the fact the idea that it's all got to be graded centrally, which I think makes and the privacy issues and so on. But and yeah, so absolutely, it is deeply ironic that the problems that the course hopes to address is experienced by the software that's supposed to support the course.
Right. And it's it's even potentially more than ironic, because it questions, it's like, okay, it's fine for someone to like give speeches and even politically, right. But then if the country is going down the tubes, it's like, well, there's a disconnect.
But I think that in some ways there, I would say that the flaw is not is with the academic system in terms of having groups of TAs build software. In that the problem is that,
well, that's for sure.
You've got this process where a group who are kind of partially interested in doing something part-time, and some of the individual bits of TA code from the UC Berkeley students has been very, very good, but then it's the hand of what I think one of the things that's not maybe mentioned explicitly in the course, but I think is certainly true, is doing this thing well requires a committed team over a period, and you need somebody to coordinate and ensure that the engineering principles are being followed, not just this group.
Not only a team, but a group of people who understand the pedagogy of the particular assignment.
Well, that's another thing, absolutely. Well, I mean, we have compounded errors. One is the the architecture and the software engineering of the graders, and two is then the pedagogy of the assignments to support that. And I mean, I spent many hours fixing bugs in the AutoGraders, and I mean, looking back at it, it's like, well, if I had built the system from scratch, maybe that would have been faster, and we would have been in a better position. But that's legacy. It's all this real world stuff.
And yeah. I do need to throw in the sort of the structure of the book and the course. Those same, it's not just coding. Those same principles apply to any system that you're building, and it would have been nice to see, as a result of this like sort of high level knowledge, is like, hey, we're building something, and we know this is going to change in 6 months and a year, so we need to build that in a way that's going to support and that really has, that hasn't been.
No, it didn't happen, and there is a failure there, and it's an interesting question now of whether the whole thing can recover from that. I mean, I have a similar issue with the Agile Ventures site itself, in that the site that we use here, and I mean it's still used, it's still it's legacy code, but it was built by a lot of part-time people being involved, and I'm now taken over management of it, and there's a huge amount of technical debt. I think it's not quite as bad as the AutoGraders, but it's still a lot of technical debt here. And the question I often ask myself is, I'm burning all this time fixing technical debts. Would it have made more sense for me to take a direct hand in it earlier on? So it's and it's a bit like this the boiling frog story of like, how long are you gonna when do you jump out of the beaker? Yes, it's a great discussion. I'm gonna just jump there to.
Or when do you decide to buy a new car instead of putting more money in the old one?
Absolutely. Janet, you had this question about faking logins in Cucumber. Should we just look at that quickly before we wrap up?
I would love that. The students, their knowledge has progressed past mine.
Right.
And what they're doing is, I've got students working on a forum system, and they want to be able to write tests for creating new posts and deleting posts where you need to be logged in as a particular user.
Yes. It sounds like a common situation. Yeah. Yes. And
they said they looked for resources on doing this and haven't found it, so I said I'd bring it up at the meeting.
Okay. Yes, and I think, well, it makes me think a couple of things. The first thing that it makes me think is that within Cucumber you can step through the process. You can kind of write steps that do the login from Cucumber. So you can have go to this login page and enter the password. So you can kind of do it. One is you can sort of do it manually in Cucumber, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Because I think they were doing it, and I'm looking at which wasn't
Cucumber and Capybara.
Yeah, I mean,
does a lot of this.
Right.
Right.
Go on, Janet.
Okay, because I think they were trying to do, I'm on this page and I'm logged in as. They weren't doing the part where they were actually doing the login. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, so you could be, for any step. So if we were doing this in work brain. Yeah. So like given I am on the page and logged in as. Now, I think in general, I would say that if you've got an and in your Cucumber step, then that's probably an indication that maybe it should be 2 steps. But that doesn't.
Sure.
We can still have, you know, in our Cucumber file, we've got given, and then we've got. I always forget. It's like this, and I've got the slashes the wrong way around, but no, it doesn't matter. Anyway, like this, and so we've got the I'm on the page and logged in as. Oh, let's say that's called John or something over there. Like that. So you could then have your.
Right.
No, don't do that. It goes like this. You can have your little thing there. Slip in there and just put whatever. We'll do dot star there, and then we have do, and we have this is name there, and so you can write a series of steps in here which might say visit. You know, you're using Capybara in here, and whatever is the say on your app has users sign up in here. That's your page that you go to, and then you do, you know, fill in, and we've got name equals, and then you put the, you know, the name goes there, like so. It's probably, come on, not sure, anyway. Oh, it's a fill in name with, I think it's like this, right around. I think this is you know, and then, you know, say there's a password. I mean, you might have like a test user, and so you've filled the password in with whatever is your, you know, it's ultra secure one. I like 123 actually, it's a good one. And then we do, you know, click the submit, and then you've logged in, and then you say, and so on the, so say that you had, this is the whatever page you're on. This is like, I don't know, it's called the home page, or the, I don't know, let's call it the accounts page. And so that's then here we've got that's another page we've got here. That's we've got a little page like so. And we do like this, and so then we might say, let's visit that page, and we can just go and visit that, and we've got page. So when I say the manual method, that's the sort of thing that we might have. But as I say, this and thing here, you know, you can sort of break that up into 2 pieces and just have one thing that does that, and then the next one that does this, because in principle, the state of being logged in, if it's implemented correctly, should be maintained from one Cucumber step to the next. If that makes sense. And there's some people who say, yeah, you should do that every time. You should do the, you know, the login every time. We actually have in several of our projects, we use there's kind of like a way of like what I call it punching Warden. I mean, we use Devise, which under the hood uses Warden, and you can just kind of set, you can in principle just set, so this is like, it's kind of cheating, and you just set the cookie directly to be logged in, and that kind of saves some time, you know, rather than having every one of your Cucumber tests run through this, you know, logging in process every time.
Yeah, my students had stuff like that where they tested the login, right? But then for all the stuff where you had to be logged in, they used Devise.
Right, they use this sort of yeah. So that's and some people would say that that's, you know, that's dangerous because this is now sort of like what we were talking about before, white box testing. You're reaching in and manipulating the cookie, and if Devise changes and that's all, you know, different, then it might stop working. Although actually for us that's been stable for the last 3 years of running it, so it's all, you know, you can have religious arguments about that backwards and forwards. Is that a reasonable response there, Janet? Is that all we?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Yeah, so I'll send that on to them. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Cool, great. So then there's the survey. Oh, right. And so you actually got an entire. You're right. So how many students are typically in your course? How many times have you taught a course with this material? Is your course required for the CS or SE degree at your institution? Yep. Wonderful. Yes. And then this was a set of questions that you would be particularly interested. You're particularly interested in.
Yeah, I tried to come up with things that were fairly comprehensive. You know, it's always a challenge. You don't want to make it too long, but I don't think that looks long.
Yeah, that looks great to me. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think if everybody looks it over and has any ideas, I can add people to the to the forms to be able to edit
Yeah.
them if folks want, or I can just add suggestions if people have them. But I think this probably is the kind of thing that we ought to start gathering data on this, because
Sure.
you know, like I know when I was on the job market this year, I was poking around various institutional web pages, and I found a number of people where I'm looking at their syllabi thinking they've got to be using this book because it sounded like this class, but they're not people who've been on the mailing lists participating or the calls or so you don't know how many sort of stealth users there might be out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I should probably add something at the end after I let people provide their information.
Interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, we have, like about 400.
It could also be an opportunity to get feedback on the book. It could be an opportunity to get feedback on the SPOC. So I could maybe add some free-form at the end as well.
Sure. Totally. Yeah, well, I think let's move towards doing it. I would definitely, please do share the underlying documents with us, or at the very least with me. Share access to underlying.
If anybody has a preferred email for Google Docs, I can use that. I didn't want to just send it to the whole BetaSaaSers list, because again, there's all these people on there who aren't
instructors. Yeah. I mean, it's accumulated a lot. Yeah. Sorry, say again, Janet. Your audio is starting to break up.
That's probably the place to start.
Say again, Janet. Your audio kind of broke up there a little bit.
Yes, I just figured we should start with, adding the document edits just to the people, we know who've been on the calls. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'll share with you, Stan, and then you can add everybody else, and we'll get it set.
Sounds good. Yeah, I was just going to mention, we've got like about 400 or 500 people who have signed up to our, the general, get a free book copy for an instructor for use to trial in your class. And so we have like about 500 emails, and I try to add all of those to the ESAS instructors list. And so there's a lot of people who get copies of the book, and I don't know how many of them are continuing to use the book in the course or what have you. So yes, it would certainly be interesting to do this kind of survey, and that looks like a great, almost. I'm not immediately thinking of things to add, but yes, so that link's there in the page, and I'll pop that in the Slack as well for everyone. So yeah, I'll put an item in there. Let's all collaborate on seeing if there are other things that we would like to have added to this, and then go ahead and do the survey, because I think it would be very interesting. Yeah, thanks, Janet. Great work.
You're welcome.
Really good.
Wonderful. Okay. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of the agenda items. We've got, Richard, what to do in the last 1 or 2 classes left. I think a Punch and Judy show. I'm sure with the hands you could be doing.
Well, what I think I'm going to do is I could just replay a video of one of our Friday BetaSaaSers meeting.
Right.
Or assign it and give them a quiz.
So I just had my students read the Mythical Man Month paper.
Oh yeah.
That's good.
And of course, it's interesting because so many of the issues he talks about, they said, well, now that we're doing Agile, so.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, when you say that one, that particular paper on the Mythical Man Month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
like
then
it's one chapter in the book.
Just that one chapter, and then next week, what I'm going to have them read is the Cathedral and the Bazaar.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's always fun, because I tell them it's 40 pages and they freak out, and then they all love it.
That's good. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. You know what I do as my last extra credit assignment, if they miss any like little online quiz, is I have them read No Silver Bullet, which is like
that's another
sort of the 20 years later thing, and then say this is because that also gives a perspective on the old stuff and then what might be coming, and some of the stuff has sort of come to pass and some hasn't, because the No Silver Bullet is a little bit closer to to the time frame. It's the late 90s or something.
I used to do that, but it's just started feeling too dated. But I guess if you make the fact that it's dated part of the assignment, it works.
Yeah. Well, but the other stuff is even more dated than that. Some of the stuff in the Mythical Man Month book.
But I think that it's even more intentional, right? Because it's not trying to be up to date. And then we also had a very fun discussion of what a card punch was.
Oh my goodness.
And I ended up posting a couple of videos to show them the card reader, which they got a huge kick out of.
Right. You could bring it back to the
Oh,
hanging
what
jazz.
fun.
But
Yeah.
Oh, no.
There we go. All right.
all
Good.
good ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go. Yeah, the one thing I'll just bring back because I'll put it into link it in there. There was also I was pointing out earlier on. I can find it now. Is yes. So resources for how to use debuggers. There's this often overlooked but quite nice little work through of using ByBug. With some very like you've got a little
nice.
here, and it sort of steps you through. Like what's happening when you stop on a particular line and using the commands and what you would expect to see.
And you're gonna.
Different. No, this is the one I showed you earlier.
Okay, because I was going to say that sounds remarkably like what you
Yeah, no, I was just bringing it.
Right.
Rose was out before,
that's
and
cemented in my head that I've like practically signed up to do that.
But did you post that in the text for our meeting?
I in several places, and it's is it now also?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There it is. All right. All right.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I've been meaning to get around to that.
Indeed. Okay, great. Well, I think we've beaten several topics to a slow lingering death there, but it was good fun. Yes, and I think we've done that. Meeting was. Let's declare it done. I will press the save button here, just in case anybody's looking for that link. You've all got it hopefully now.
Yeah,
put it there.
good. It's as long as it doesn't crash when you hit save.
Yes. There we go. So. Great. Well, I'm going to be away on Monday and Tuesday, but that won't affect our meeting next week, potentially for next Friday. So same time, same.
And is that when you're meeting with Armando?
Yes, I'm in Edinburgh for this Learning at Scale conference on Monday.
Here's what you need to do: like do this real-time tweets of your meeting with
Armando.
Oh yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he's leaning toward Gitbug. Oh no.
No. It's he's decided to go back to Tonka Toys. It's going to be entirely.
Right.
Good luck
on your meeting. Yeah, we will be.
No, thanks. Yeah. Well, I'll try and give updates in the probably tweeting is since I got banned from Twitter. That's a whole other story. But yeah, on the Slack channel. There's a motivation for you all to install the Slack desktop to sort of experience live, or even on the mobile to experience the live Sam Armando meeting of minds in Edinburgh, Scotland. Good stuff. All right, great stuff, guys. Look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.